talking about the movie One Crazy Summer, a 1986 screwball comedy by director Savage Steve Holland. This is follow-on from the movie Better Off Dead that also starred John Cusack. And in fact, there's many faces here that would have appeared in the movie Better Off Dead. Some kind of almost see it as a sort of spiritual kind of cousin to that movie. So essentially it follows John Cusack's character called Hoops. He is an aspiring cartoonist who is basically kind of going on a kind of a summer break to this particular island. You know, he's in search of love, etc. A bit of a kind of a loose end of what to do with his life. So he goes on this kind of like trip with his kind of like crazy friend. There he meets Demi Moore. She is basically a kind of aspiring musician, and she's there to try and kind of save her kind of home from evil land developers, as you do. Then we meet a kind of a bunch of other kind of like crazy characters, and then hijinks ensue. So let's talk about One Crazy Summer. Now I would say this is one of the memories that I have of this film. This used to be my brother's favourite film back when we were a lot younger, and it's a strange mix of tones, this film, because it sits somewhere between the kind of like the teen kind of comedies that you would have got at the time. Things like kind of like the Porky's films or Meatballs and stuff like that. So it's kind of like that, but you have the other kind of styles of comedies like Airplane and the kind of parodies, and it kind of sits in between those two, I would say. It's kind of like it is a kind of a teen romance comedy, but it has these kind of like weird surreal elements and kind of like parody of sketches within this movie, kind of like Airplane and stuff like that. So stuff obviously that wouldn't happen in the kind of any type of real world, but it never goes full on in jokes like that all the minute. So it has this weird space where it's kind of a parody movie, but it doesn't go kind of as far as maybe something like the Naked Gun or the Airplanes and stuff like that. It kind of is a kind of toned down version. So it exists in this kind of like this weird space. And in regards to plot, there's really not much of one. It's just kind of one situation to another, with the ultimate goal to try and save this, Demi Moore's kind of like house. And then there's a few kind of like madcap adventures about how they would get that. But the plot is relatively kind of like fast and loose, if that makes sense. So how does it work as a film? Like I said, this is a product of its time, and 1986, it is so 80s. I mean, the haircuts, the kind of the music, obviously the kind of the wardrobe, everything is very, very 80s. There's actually quite a lot of pop culture references here. Again, though, they're obviously of the time, so it's kind of a little bit meta in its time. So if you are aware of the 80s culture, or you are of a certain age, then you probably would laugh a lot more about a lot of these kind of like these jokes and stuff like that. I would say this movie consists of some very funny scenes in some places, with the kind of like a mishmash plot and way too many characters. There are some really great scenes here, and there are ones that will kind of make you laugh out loud, but there are equally jokes that kind of just feel a little bit kind of like, oof, I kind of knew they were going there. Its humdrum plot doesn't really help, to be honest, but the characters are all kind of quite likeable, but there are too many. We were introduced to many kind of like friends of John Cusack's, and there's literally just too many. And then you have another one, oh, I forgot that person's even in this movie, and things like that. And there'll be all these kind of little side characters that have a little bit of backstory you'll forget about once they're kind of off screen and stuff like that. You've got quite a lot of kind of famous faces here, obviously, early on in their career. This is Jeremy Piven's first feature, I believe, and you've got Bob Cates Goldsmith, whatever he's got, the guy from Police Academy 2, who's doing the same shtick in this kind of movie as well. And that's what I remember about this film when I kind of first watched it. It was him, because obviously we'd sort of seen Police Academy 2, and he has quite a distinctive character, but he essentially plays the same character in this one as he did his shtick back in those days. And the most famous scene, I would say, probably of this one is the Godzilla scene, which is, it is a fun movie. There's a variety of other things parodied here, Jaws among others, and things like that. To me, it is a funny film, but there's just not a lot to it. And I've got to say, some of the characters are paper thin here. I mean, Demi Moore, the female characters in general, let's be honest, are just there for window dressing. Demi Moore is just a girl, a damsel in distress, doesn't really get involved in any of that kind of like hijinks herself really. The only other kind of female character is the girlfriend of the bad guy, and again she's just a kind of a seductress. There, you know, there's not much in the way of female roles. You know, this was kind of the time, unfortunately, where this was kind of the norm. But nonetheless, you know, watching it now, you can obviously see it maybe a little bit more of a different kind of a viewpoint. So, although I do think this film is very funny in places, it doesn't particularly work that well as a story. It's just a kind of a loose string of events tied together with the loosest of possible threads, really. So, and John Cusack makes a likeable leading man here, very much doing his kind of his thing that he did back in those days. You know, it's a little bit of a time capsule, this film. It's not as fun as I remember it, but it is still fun, and there are moments of genius peppered throughout this film. But as a film itself, there's not a lot here, really. I'll give it a 6 out of 10 though, because it is enjoyable, especially if you are an 80s nostalgia freak, or you just remember those times fondly, and you like to go back and kind of revisit them. But you know, I remember really loving this film. I say it was my brother's favourite film for a long time. But these days, I feel it's kind of it's a little bit of an odd place, because, like I said, it's a weird. It sits in a weird place. Not quite a parody, but then not quite the kind of your standard kind of teen comedy either. It's a weird kind of mix of genres in a particular way. But worth a watch, I would say, if you like kind of like odd, weird comedies with kind of lots of 80s cheese on it. 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment. And I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.